in this panel discussion, where we have three very eminent panelists, and I'll introduce them to you. So we have Dr. Prithvish Nag. He needs no introduction to the geospatial fraternity of the country. Dr. Nag is currently visiting professor at IIT BHU. Prior to that, he has held position of vice chancellor in several universities, including Kashi Vidyapeeth and others. He is also the former Surveyor General of India, and prior to that, he served as a director of National Atlas and Thematic Mapping Organization. He is a gold medalist, and besides that, he has also won several awards and recognitions in his illustrious career. So before I invite Dr. Nag, Dr. Nag, I have just a couple of questions for you, which you may like to address in your remarks. One is, very often when I talk to my industry colleagues, they say that when they hire fresh students from university campuses, those with postgraduate degree in geospatial related technologies, oftentimes they find that the knowledge they acquired in the courses is not aligned to what the users require, users be in the industry or in the government or PSUs anywhere. So the feeling is there is a bit of a disconnect between what the universities are producing and what the users require. So I'd like to hear from you, what could be the approach, if you agree with this observation, and if so, what would be a recommendation to bridge that gap between what the university produce and what the employers require? And my second question to you is, there's a lot of talk about industry-academia collaboration. And I know in the past through AGI, we have organized some roundtables and other events to provide that kind of engagement between industry and academia. I'd like to hear from you, what would be a successful model? Over to you, Dr. Rao.
Thank you very much for inviting me to for this panel discussion, which is on building GIS capability to realize the new India vision. My friends and colleagues are here along with me, apart from Mr. Mathur, Mr. Sanjay Kumar is there, and Dr. Dadwal is there. We were colleagues earlier as well. Friends, the two issues which were asked me to speak on this, I will come to it. But before that, I would like to mention what Mr. Mathur was discussing, that Government of India has set a goal for US 4 trillion, the GDP approved by 2022, when India will celebrate its 75th year of independence. The strategy has been mentioned by the Honorable Prime Minister of the country. It includes development which touches every Indian in the form of tangible benefits leading to a better ease of life, broad-based economic growth to ensure balanced regional development, and efficient transport and accountable government as well. And also, along with this, Niti Aayog has identified certain sectors where the priority is to be given. These sectors are, as Mr. Mathur has mentioned, agriculture, urban development, water, education for all, and adoption of new technologies. Now, the issue is perhaps that in this new vision, can GIS be the key technology? Can we take a central place in this whole scenario? We have been given certain opportunities which are in the form of Smart Cities project or Ganga Rejuvenation project or Swachh Bharat project, etc., etc. So these projects are there where the application of GIS is the possibility of application of GIS is there, and we should explore the possibility for this purpose as well. There are problems, there are issues along with it, but it is required for the country because we have been talking about the Digital India program, we're talking about the direct benefits, and as Mr. Mathur has mentioned, that all this come under the India Stack program. So India Stack program is there, and within this, all these programs are there. And Mr. Mathur would like to see that instead of India Stack, it should be Geospatial India Stack. So perhaps we can look into it, that how it can become like that. In order to do so, did certain things in the past also, and trying to do a lot of things so that the government initiatives and government rules and regulation and protocols should also meet the new vision of India, which, as you know, the National Map Policy of 2005, Civil Aviation Requirements 2012, Remote Sensing Data Policy 2001 and 2011, and National Data Sharing Policy of 2012, etc. These are all meant to meet the requirements of the, now we know as Digital India, but it was meant for requirement of the giving accessibility to the geospatial information. And as Mr. Mathur had mentioned and also raised a question in front of me, that the issue is skilled manpower. We are not getting the people who are industry ready. Though there are several institutions, several universities have come up, you will find courses within industry, outside the industry, who are giving postgraduate or undergraduate degrees or diplomas in geospatial technology. But what we find that, as Mr. Mathur has mentioned, they are not directly industry ready. But for future employment, for the new type of requirement like AI, ML, big data analytics, IoT, AR, VR, all these things have to be an integral part of the geospatial training programs or geospatial courses. What we find that industry requires these type of activities, not even industry, also within the government also we require this type of experience, but in the courses, these things are given less priority. Apart from that, apart from the students to get trained, it is also important that the faculty also, they pick up these skills so that this is transferred or this is then filtered down to the students also. Again, within the government of India, we try to do certain things under the DST's NRTMS program to promote the geospatial technology in the country. We try to support new courses, new training projects, new training courses, new giving projects. And most important thing which we are trying to do is to identify geospatial chairs in the country, 5 per year, with people people having geospatial background. We try to recognize them, give them funds, certain facilities, so that they can promote geospatial technology in their own domain, and also to be a sort of a advisors to us, to the Department of Science and Technology, in taking up new projects, in giving the direction what to be done in the future as well. So these activities are being carried out under the NRDMS project. But training programs are there. Training programs are there in IRS, in IIST, in NATMO, different IITs, including my IIT. And also, as I mentioned, that wherever there are National Geospatial Chair Professor, we try to introduce certain courses there or modify the courses which are existing to meet the modern requirement of the industry or even of the government. Government also wants to become more computer savvy, more technology savvy. So government requirements are also there. Then there are courses like B Electrical, PhD Geoinformatics. Then certain postgraduate courses are there in different universities. MTech courses are there. MTech courses one at my institute, IIT as well. Then there are BSc in Applied Remote Sensing courses also. All these courses we are trying to modify it, help them to introduce the geospatial technology there as well. Then there are certificate courses, etc. And we bring out around 200 to 300 professionals in geospatial technology per year. Now the requirements are more. The calculations mention that we require people of this background, not only in central government like to run the NSDI or the state as SDIs, or to use map viewers, WMS, or to have, say, catalog service web, or web feature services. All these things require different type of training as well, which unfortunately are not being in the courses. And there are other sectors where we have mentioned some new projects which are sponsored by Government of India, and which the chairman is also mentioned just now, to support governance activities. How this technology and how the trained people can help in helping the governance, to help sustainable development, to prepare development strategies, to involve citizens, and to, in general, to bring the geospatial technology to the general people as well. So this is what is required. Apart from the other things, a lot of bigger projects are coming up. Like, for example, we have to prepare a database for disaster management, for emergency management, for land records, for geospatial market, for private industry. All these things, though it comes under the UN GGIM, but it is also very much relevant directly to India, considering the modern scenario, flood mapping, etc. So hence, there are two types of requirements. One is which is industry oriented, where industrial requirement is to be seen, and the other requirement is where the government requires people who can handle the problems of the government as well. Well, the rosy side of it is that the geospatial industry in the country up to 2025 is around $4 billion, and it is likely to increase further also, and the growth rate appears to be very high. But we have to see that how manpower can help us in this regard. So hence, the private sector participation is also required, and where the geospatial services can be provided, we can analyze the demography, the competitiveness, the market strategy, route planning, all sort of things are required for this. Hence, we have to find out what should be the way to go ahead. We find that there are another sector. This is the domestic sector I was mentioning. There's an international sector also, where a lot of work come to India, or our people, they go abroad in North America, or the project comes from North America and Europe, and to carry out these projects. So one is the domestic requirement, other is the international requirement. And as I mentioned, within the domestic, there's a government sector and there are industry sector. So all these three sectors have to be taken care of while we look into how the geospatial technology can be introduced in our different courses. Now, within the federal government, there are several activities which are going on related to rural development, land and urban resources, construction and maintenance of road, railways, waterways, civil aviation, urban renewal, e-governance, etc., where the potential of geospatial industry is there. Hence, re-engineering of existing business models, government governance, all these things are required. And this is one of the important things. Unfortunately, what is happening, that we don't have any literature, we don't have any books which can tell us that how, say, project management or solution architecture, big data, IoT, all these things, this can be taught with the help of the books. So perhaps ESRI can take up these type of issues, or any university can take up these type of issues, that how to prepare the books to meet the new type of requirement, so that the students can understand, can study these details, and they can be abreast with the all sort of new scenario. I tried to do once. I prepared a book on India geospatial infrastructure based on the requirement of specifically Kumaon University. Kumaon University wanted that their students should be, which are coming out of the PG, they should be good enough to be absorbed in the market directly. So hence the managerial issues, the security issues, all these things, the book contained all these things. And fortunately, all these students which are coming out doing the PG courses, they are being absorbed in the industry. So this is one of the perhaps the success story. But a lot of things have to be done, and it can be done in a different ways. We can take real life projects. We can have collaboration with the industry, which Mr. Mathur mentioned. We can take up projects with the industry, and all sort of things can be done where we can shake hand with the industry in order to promote the geospatial technology in the country. Now, considering all these factors and the two questions you raised, that what are the how the industry and academia can collaborate, and also how the industry-ready students, they don't come out. Considering both the two factors, what we did in the Institute of Technology, Banaras Hindu University, that on 31st May 2019, last year, we signed an MOU with ESRI. This MOU was for the collaboration and to establish a center for geospatial excellence to develop domain specifics, geospatial skills, technical knowledge, and resources. And particularly, projects were taken up for the specific purposes to start with. So we took within the state UP, we took up a project for doing that, and that was the Defense Industrial Corridor. IIT BHU was given a project to develop in the nearby area, Bundelkhand area, to develop a defense industrial project. And that was the focus of the all activities. And both industry, ESRI India, and IIT, they both joined hand to do so. IIT, with having reputation of around 100 years, producing best engineers in the country in civil, geoinformatics, environmental engineering, geoscience, etc., and apart from other branches of sciences. And they also are running now the MTech in geospatial technology as well as PhD courses. So, and on the other hand, ESRI India, being the backbone of the India's country's mapping and spatial analysis and meeting the all GIS requirements, we thought that this is perhaps a model which we can take up so that we can deliver at the cutting edge of technology, GIS solution and technology in, for example, land management, utilities, urban infrastructure, disaster management, telecommunication, urban and municipal areas, transport, defense and natural resources. So it was thought that if IIT gets a project and expertise from ESRI is required, then we'll join hands. Or conversely, if a project comes to ESRI, then a part of the project will be shared by IIT BHU also, and both put together, we can take up the new projects. So the government of Uttar Pradesh
Dr. Nag, we are running out of time.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yes, it's almost over. Around 2.5 lakh jobs out of it. What I'm trying to suggest is that geospatial technology initiative should not be only creation of geospatial jobs, but jobs in other sectors also. And I'm sure that this collaboration will be a model collaboration between the academia and the industry. This is not the final. Further, this will grow, and this relationship will also grow. Hand-holding and other type of continuously updating of courses which is required. This will carry on, and this will be perhaps a starting point. And the years to come, the time to come, we'll have a better understanding between the industry and the academia for the reason of national development or a new India. Thank you very much for giving me the occasion to speak on this issue. Thank you, Rajesh.
Dr. Nag, you've given a good understanding of how one can create a model partnership between industry and academia. Of course, these are early days and we'll all learn from the experience over the next few months and years. Our next speaker this afternoon is Dr. Dadwal. Dr. Vinay Dadwal is currently Director of Indian Institute of Space Technologies, Space Science and Technology, located at Trivandrum. It's an autonomous body under ISRO. Prior to that, he's held the position of Director, NRSC, National Remote Sensing Center, and also the Dean of Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, Dehradun. He has more than 37 years of research experience in different domains, agriculture, disaster management, and others. He is also the recipient of several awards in his illustrious career. Dr. Dadwal I have two questions which I request you to address apart from your deliberations. You have a lot of experience of research in different domains as your profile indicates. You could probably give us your perspective on how academicians or research organization can engage themselves in research-related activities, especially in different domains, to come up with innovative solutions. And my second question to you is, this is something which Dr. Kiran Kumar also touched upon, the interest of officers, senior officers, in understanding technology and looking for solutions coming out of it. Okay? Very often we find that a lot of decision makers and senior officers have very little understanding of this technology. So what kind of mechanism could be adopted to expose them to this technology so that they can better appreciate the relevance of geospatial technologies in their domain? Dr. Delwal.
Thank you, Rajesh ji. At the outset, let me thank Mr. Agendra Kumar for inviting me to the ESRI user conference. My also first experience of the remote participation, although physically I have participated in a couple of them. And it is also a pleasure to have my co-panelists, Dr. Prithvish Nag and Sanjay, whom I know for quite many years, since my Dehradun days, and of course you. You would like to focus me on research organizations and how to bring the decision makers on up to date. So I would try to do so, but just point out a couple of things. One thing which is very, very apparent to people who follow geospatial technology is that one, not only its adoption and use is expanding, the number of additional disciplines which it is touching is also expanding every, let us say, every now and then. So now, even in today's short discussion, we have already talked of artificial intelligence. We have talked of stacks. We have also talked of cloud, perhaps, and so on and so forth. So I was first introduced to ArcGIS and GIS in early 90s, that era. So what has happened within our eyes in last 30 years is there is more satellite data which is collected than that can be analyzed. Two, the satellite data is open, freely available in huge quantities. Third, the earlier methods of information extraction have all failed given this new data load. Fourth, the software now allows us to produce live maps, not static maps, which we are used to. More importantly, given the large size of the data, you can't copy, even if it is free, you cannot copy. The network bandwidth cost will be so high. So you process the data on the cloud. Fifth, what has now happened is the resolutions have enhanced so much that you can merge your high resolution data with drone data, with mobile-based pictures. Sixth or seventh point is our location accuracies have come to a meter level. Then parallelly, what has happened, the DEM layers are today much more refined than any time. You can even build by drones, you can do aerial lidar. the policy constraints are disappearing when forced. So we have been all talking of drones, but when the locust landed in Rajasthan, the government agencies were forced to use drone for aerial spraying, right? So as was said, that these current pressures and challenges are forcing us to adopt disruptive technology. So from the scientist point of view, what is first important is that not only we bring people who are trained in GIS, we do not close doors on the associated technologies, whether they are data scientists, whether they are sensor people, whether they are communication people or computer scientist people. So the GIS community will have to adopt very, very open framework for encouraging people with diverse background to join it. Now, the second issue is, even let us say agriculture. I was formally trained in agriculture. Under the National E-Governance Program within India, and then the agriculture mission mode projects, if you take, there are projects like soil health card. So there are tens of millions of soil health data points available. I haven't seen much GIS use of it. I was associated with another project called Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, as I was chairing a technical group, where for the one of the very innovative thing which Mahalanobis Center did is it invited the proposals from private industry to do surveys in 2 to 3 districts and come up with new technologies for reduced sampling and trying to obtain small area, Gram Panchayat level average yield using remote sensing, GIS, simulation modeling, and almost 24 companies are participating. So what is clear is industry and academy has to work together. The geospatial community has to bring in technical expertise from outside and not purely rely on people who have just been brought up on the geospatial. Third, the good case studies or the good practices and success stories have to be converted into services and storyboard which can be replicated with different data sets, which is another way of sharing either codes, sharing flowcharts, sharing various ways where you can transfer your one part of the what you learned to another group, entirely new different group. So building this type of capacity building is important. But in my opinion, since we are talking of farmers doubling their income, we are talking of having 3-4 trillion size economy, and we are also trying to bring in employment. We need people who are actually service providers to farmers. Farmers, we have a possibility which earlier was also there, but the readiness index did not support it. Although Sanjay will tell us that India in the geospatial readiness ranks 25th in the world and 7th in Asia Pacific. But given our number of educated people and the exposure and the industry readiness, we should be much higher. So what we need to do is build the next generation of service users using the open data sets, our own coding strength, and custom built solutions. This is, I think, is very much required. There are opportunities and changes. So we need to unlearn what we know and be aware. So like when the Survey of India says that we will redo the land record entirely, with drones and various technologies. So it means if it is open, when there are tens of millions of soil points, when there are weather forecasts and nowcasts which are available below 10 kilometer and every 3 hours, 6 hours, when you can run crop simulation models on the cloud, and you have millions of farmers who have registered for services, advisory services. We have now algorithms. If a farmer sends a photograph, uploads it, machine learning can identify the disease and advice can be given what he should do. So we need to understand these opportunities available in this entire domain. You may also be aware under the e-National Agriculture Market, 1,000 mandis, real-time arrivals and prices is known. But we haven't built models where farmers could actually be automatically advertised where they should sell. Although the government of India very recently has taken away all the restrictions. Farmers need not sell their produce only to the local agriculture mandi. So what I am putting before the panel and the audience is let us understand and appreciate the rapid disruptions happening across so many domains, understand the true power of this pervasiveness of this geospatial technology, use the young and educated manpower, and also bring in to already people who are currently employed but not so much conversant, simpler understanding of geospatial technology, so that geospatial technology is really integrated into the economy cycle and economy ecosystem of the country. Thank you, Dr. Sri Rajesh Mathurji. If you have some other questions, you can come back to me later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Dadwal. You made some very, very relevant points. Especially with the example you gave of agriculture, a domain where you're very intimately familiar, as you mentioned. And I think you're absolutely correct. We need to kind of connect with the farmers in this particular case. Similar situation will arise in other domains as well, and deal with real issues, real challenges. Get into the agriculture ecosystem so that this whole technology adoption becomes seamlessly embedded into existing processes and leverage existing infrastructure. Thank you very much, sir. If time permits, I'll probably come back to you with a question.
Thank you very much.
The third speaker is a very well-known person again, Mr. Sanjay Kumar. He is, I'm sure each of you, anybody who's in the geospatial fraternity would have certainly attended his conferences, which are some of the best GIS conferences by any standards. I had the privilege of knowing him for, well, as long as he's been in this industry, since he started the company, I would say. So Sanjay is the CEO of Geospatial Media and Communications. He also has many other roles at the international level, and I'll just read them out for you. There is an organization called World Geospatial Industry Council, which the members include all the major geospatial companies, global geospatial companies. And he's the Secretary General and CEO of WGIC, also board member of US National Geospatial Advisory Committee, the only non-American to hold that position. All other members are US citizens. He's also on the board of OGC, Open GIS Consortium, International Society of Geodigital Earth, and I can go on. And of course, he's the former president of AGI, Association of Geospatial Industries. He was awarded a couple of years ago Global Geospatial Industry Ambassador by the UNGGIM. Sanjay, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I have two questions for you. Okay? I spoke about the India Stack. I talked about how geospatial, or rather location data, should drive or be at the center stage of various government platforms. The challenge is, even if there's a willingness on the part of government Are we ready for it? What kind of skills will be required and what's the current readiness of our manpower? And my second question is something on which I heard you talk a lot in different conferences, is how can we build a public-private partnership model in the area of skill development? Over to you, Sanjay.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to SRI India Virtual Summit. I have the pleasure of joining friends actually for almost 25 years of my career. Rajesh, Dr. Pratish Nag, Kiran Kumar sir, and Dadwal sir. This is a very exciting time, I want to say that, but at the same time, very cautious time as well. What Rajesh asked me a question about, are we ready? Depends on what we aim for. So if we aim to be a service-driven industry or service-driven economy, then we are ready. But if we aim for moving up the value chain and actually transform India into a developed economy or 4 trillion economy or self-reliant economy, I think that there are, these are very good dreams to have, and I'm very supportive of these vision and dreams. But these dreams have to be based and nurtured through a process of acknowledgement, recognition of the problems and opportunities both. So my talk would be basically to touch upon 4 important aspects. One is recognition, 2 is acknowledgement, 3rd is convergence, and 4th is fundamentals. So looking at the recognition, what I would like to first of all call upon us as a community, as professionals, first of all, that do we really recognize the valuable role of geospatial information in our living? Do we really see that what kind of impact this technology has and can make for our living in 4th industrial age or digital age, what you call about? Moving on, do we really understand that the geospatial information is at the center of data ecosystem, is at the center of data nervous system of the data ecosystem, as Jack calls about it? Thirdly, do we really think that enabling technology is all about geospatial? That geospatial is enabling technology in transformative process of our generations. And once we do recognize that this has this kind of potential, then our confidence goes up to the extent of recognizing further that what are its valuable impacts. And I would like to say 4 things: productivity, efficiency, transparency, and cost effectiveness. Geospatial is no more just seen as a tool for information management or decision support system. Geospatial is a tool for enhancing productivity, efficiency, transparency, and cost effectiveness, which means that we go to the further, that acknowledgement. Are we ready to acknowledge the current state of readiness, as Rajesh asked me? I think that many of us are not. Be that, since we need to acknowledge the state of readiness, then only we can go to the level of strategic emphasis which we have to put upon this topic. And after having that strategic emphasis, then we have to push forward for strengthening infrastructure and capacity and look towards industrial development. It's a kind of ecosystem approach of capacity development. I'll come to that. But after having recognized the valuable role of this technology, we have to acknowledge our state of affairs, which means where do we stand and what we can do. So it's very important when we go for doing something, we recognize that what we are at the moment today. And I have a kind of request to all our community members that not only enhance your confidence, but enhance the confidence of the mainstream leadership. The mainstream leadership, which is the political leadership or administrative leadership, or even science and technology leadership, has to be convinced that without geospatial and without giving a strategic emphasis on geospatial, our dreams of 4 trillion economy and our dream of self-reliant India is not going to be successful. Moving forward, I think there is a greater need for moving up the value chain. And moving up the value chain would be heavily depending on fundamental science. We need to invest into fundamental science. We need to invest into fundamental research and exploration. We always talk about applications, but application is nothing but a scalability of impact of a technology. So as good is the technology, as good will be the applications. So it's very important that we invest into fundamental science and research and exploration. Our previous speakers have put a lot of emphasis on education, which is very important. But before education is the fundamental science and research. Then comes the education and training. Skill development is important, but that's the last stage. So what I would like to say that if you want to move up the value chain, you have to focus on fundamental science, research, and education, innovation. And then talk about industrial incubation. And that's where it comes, the interdisciplinary approach of integrating computing, geography, engineering, and statistical information. Then we are ready to go up to the value chain, that we can develop something which is going to be serving the purpose of productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency. And after having that, we have to look at convergence of knowledge. We have to look at convergence of knowledge and capacities. And that's where we have to focus on integrating geospatial with domain-specific sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, water resources. So geo-agri, geo-BIM, geo-water kind of concepts have to be developed. And then system integration. Various kinds of technologies have to be brought into making a solution. And then you go for localization and customization of applications. So let's not have too much of focus on applications. That's anyways going to be taking place. But where we are lacking today, and especially in the context of self-reliant India, we have to be careful that we are on our own. And if we are on our own, then we have to develop into the, invest into the fundamentals. And that's what is my talk, is that you have to move forward. And while doing so, there is an opportunity and there's a threat as well. There's a lot of opportunity because the private sector engagement is opening up across every sector, including space reforms and other reforms. But it's very important that when you're opening up those sectors, you have to look at nurturing the industrial development. You have to nurture the public-private sector engagement. You cannot simply open and leave. Overnight, the private sector engagement cannot be built up. So we need to look at a hand-holding period where the government has to specifically invest into fundamentals and empower the private sector to play a meaningful role. I would see that moving forward, the way the geospatial information and technology is becoming at the fundamental of every business, be it aggregated business or data business or intelligence business or any kind of business, right from physical infrastructure to digital infrastructure, is dependent on location and geospatial. The enterprises will invest. And that is the greater opportunity which we have if we can elevate the level of our discussions. It requires to be discussed at the highest level of the political and administrative leadership about the strategic emphasis. It has to be seen in a much more broader, inclusive approach rather than dealing with bits and pieces. So my call would be that please do not lose the opportunity. We have already lost the opportunity of information age. We should not lose the opportunity of 4IR. The leapfrog opportunity which we have, we can only achieve that if we actually put an emphasis and a strategy around the geospatial industrial capacity. And with this, I would like to say that engagement in the private sector is very much possible. Private sector is competent enough. They are serving the whole world. Why can't we serve our own country? And we are more committed to serve our country than others. But at the same time, we need that kind of embracing situation where people embrace us. The administrators embrace us. They work with us. So thank you very much, Rajesh, for the opportunity.
Thanks, Sanjay. Sanjay, your passion for geospatial is infectious. I'm sure it's touched everybody who's listening to the deliberations of this panel. You made several very relevant points, and I don't know from where I can start, but I'll just touch upon a couple of points given the time constraint. I think moving on the value chain is fundamental when we look at building competencies, when we look at skills. Moving on the value chain is important. You also talked about convergence, and I would also add in the convergence another parameter, and that is IT. Convergence of geospatial science, geospatial technologies with information technology is also very important. Somehow, and you and I have been in this technology for decades. Okay? Somehow, people in geospatial believe we are in a niche technology. We are different. Yes, we are different. But at the end of the day, the foundation is built on IT. Likewise, computer science folks think geospatial is a different domain. It's for the scientific community. It's not for them. I think those barriers have to go. And, I was at a university last year, and there are some panels that invited me. The computer science department there, and they do an MTech course in GIS. They work hand in hand in projects, and I was amazed by some of the work they did. They done where they applied AI and machine learning along with GIS technology. For instance, one of course was feature extraction. They had a 100-acre campus. They mapped the whole thing, identified every species, and got more than 85% accuracy, which is good for an AI-based system. More importantly, they also built some model, again using artificial intelligence, for predicting avalanches. So that convergence is important. If we have to build large systems, we have to really make geospatial professionals very familiar with IT tools and vice versa. I think that's very critical. Well, I would like to ask some questions to panelists, but I think in the interest of time, we probably won't have that opportunity. I'd just like to very quickly summarize what all has been discussed. Dr. Nag dwelt on the whole public-private, not public-private, excuse me, on the academy-industry collaboration, and he especially talked about how IIT BHU has signed an MOU with my company, and what the direction. And as I mentioned earlier, these are still early days, and a lot more needs to be done, but we have to have that kind of partnership between industry and academia. And my view is, if we can build this kind of a relationship, it'll also deal with some of the other challenges. For instance, I would like my industry colleagues to go to universities and talk about the technology direction, talk about how the technology is evolving. The presentation that Jack gave 2 days ago, I think should be shared with every organization, every university where they are teaching geospatial technologies, so that both faculty and students know where their technology is heading. It'll help the faculty in getting a better understanding of what the industry requires and the employers require, prospective employers. And it'll also give the industry a better view of what kind of competencies are being built in the university campus and how they can guide them in their initiatives. So this kind of collaboration is important. I would like AGI to take the lead in that. They represent the entire geospatial industry of the country. And I know Agendra is listening in. So Agendra Kumar is the current president of AGI. I hope under his leadership, AGI can move forward, to use your phrase, Sanjay, move forward in building a deeper connect between industry and academia. We at S India have taken some steps. We have formed Geospatial Academia Council of India, GACI, which is building a partnership, but that's a company to academia level. If you do build a much larger ecosystem involving the entire industry, then I would expect AGI to take the lead. Dr. Dedwal spoke about the role of research, how we had to take a problem-solving approach, and he gave a lot of examples of farmers. Ultimately, how do we reach out to the farmer? Building solutions and doing research in the lab is one aspect, but reaching out to the farmers and sharing that knowledge is important. And he gave an example of how farmer can be counseled and guided using even mobile phones today, if the crop is infected, and what could be the possible solution. And of course, Sanjay, we already discussed and summarized what you said. So I think we had a great discussion. I think a lot of relevant points have come out, and we'll consolidate all these and probably come out with some kind of a paper on how we can build skilled inventory, if you will, or skilled GIS capacity for the new India. I'd like to thank all the panelists for sparing their time and sharing their perspectives in this panel. Thank you very much.